The Manhattan Project: Rights, Responsibilities, and the Impact of the Atomic Bomb. In the beginning of World War II, there was growing concern among scientists around the globe that Nazis would soon discover how to create the world's first atomic bomb. It was this concern that triggered Albert Einstein to write a letter addressed to President Roosevelt, suggesting America take up the responsibility to win the war and put an end to Hitler's reign. This was the birth of the Manhattan Project, the task of scientists from around the globe to build the world's first atomic bomb. The project spanned from 1942 to 1945, and on August 6th of that same year, the first successful atomic bomb was dropped in Hiroshima, Japan, and 3 days later in Nagasaki, Japan. Not only did these events take over 110,000 lives, but they also challenged the morality of the many men and women involved. The Manhattan Project forever altered the field of science, war tactics, and ignited the controversy regarding the destructive power of nuclear weapons. In 1938, a German nuclear physicist by the name of Otto Hahn made the first confirmed discovery of the fission of heavy nuclei. 5 years before, a man named Adolf Hitler came into power as Chancellor of Germany and the leader of the Nazi Party. Hitler brought despair and destruction around with him, not only in Germany, but in other countries too. And from this, World War II arose, as France and Britain declared war on Germany after Hitler and his Nazi Party invaded Poland in 1939. During this time, scientists around the world were fleeing their native countries because of Hitler's influence and tyranny over the area, and the United States of America still wasn't officially involved in World War II. On August 2, 1939, Leo Szilard, the scientist who discovered the nuclear chain reaction in 1933, convinced scientist Albert Einstein to write a letter to President Roosevelt in 1939, expressing the need for the U.S. to join the race of building the world's first atomic bomb. Leo, along with scientists all over the world, were hearing that Germany was discovering the science behind making the first atomic bomb. Leo Szilard feared what would come if Hitler and the Nazis obtained a nuclear weapon. President Roosevelt didn't see the project suggested by Albert Einstein and Szilard as a priority, but he did decide to invest in the idea. He originally only invested around $6,000 for the research and the possibility of the project to be carried out. It was proven possible by a small team of scientists. The Manhattan Project was expected to cost around $100 million and take about 3 to 4 years to be completed. Although the time frame was accurate, it took approximately $20 billion. The Manhattan Project didn't truly start on a major scale until a day before the Pearl Harbor attack, December 5, 1941, and a day after the devastating attack, the U.S. officially declared war. Vannevar Bush was head of all wartime projects in the early 40s and the beginning of World War II, and he was in charge of finding a leader for this new project. He appointed a man named General Leslie Groves. Bush was at first reluctant of appointing General Groves because he seemingly lacked the sensitivity to run the entire military aspect of the Manhattan Project. Groves was a dedicated head of the project. This was proven throughout the span of the project as he persuaded leaders to participate in the project, even when he was doubtful of its outcome. Only few of the personnel involved in the Manhattan Project knew the entirety of the plan for it to ensure secrecy, although some Soviet spies got a hold of some information and delivered it to the Soviet Union before the ending of World War II. Scientists and militants working on the project were informed as little as possible for this same reason. Workers knew only small parts of their tasks alone, and nothing else to ensure utmost secrecy. These security measures of the Manhattan Project helped it become one of the most secretive endeavors of the 20th century. The Manhattan Project also kept secret by having the tasks scattered between 5 sites all over the United States. Every location had an important role in the development of the atomic bomb. In Berkeley, California, physicists at Radiation Laboratory gave information and knowledge that was needed for the electromagnetic separation process. At the University of Chicago, the Metallurgical Laboratory was able to generate the first chain reaction and create the first small-scale production process for making plutonium. Enrico Fermi made key contributions while working in Chicago, including supervising the first controlled stained chain reaction. This atomic pile helped scientists and physicists study the process of nuclear fission in more depth. The most prominent and main base for the studies of the project was in Los Alamos, New Mexico, a place recommended by a man named Robert Oppenheimer. All of the locations for the project were isolated with large amounts of open land around them for testing and secrecy. Groves appointed Robert Oppenheimer to be the scientific head of the Manhattan Project. Building the first atomic bomb was an extremely large responsibility for the U.S. in a race against time, the nation of Germany, and the hope that all of the time, energy, and money spent on the extensive project was worth it. Oppenheimer and Groves were key components to the success of making the atomic bomb. From 1942 to 1945, the Manhattan Project was constantly improving and getting closer and closer to the first atomic bomb. The actual first atomic bomb was the bomb tested in the Trinity test. The Trinity test was a test to check to see if the atomic bomb was ready for war, and if it actually worked. The test was conducted July 6, 1945, 230 miles south of the project's headquarters in Los Alamos, New Mexico, and 21 days before the atomic bomb Little Boy would be dropped in Hiroshima, Japan. On August 6, 1945, the aircraft Enola Gay soared through the Japanese skies with the direction of pilot Paul Tibbitt. The cargo of the plane was a groundbreaking invention, an atomic bomb by the better name of Little Boy. A bomb so powerful it was equivalent to 20,000 tons of TNT. The destination was Hiroshima, Japan, the place in which the bomb would be dropped on tens of thousands of innocent civilians. 70,000 Japanese people would die that day, taking away the right to life. And 3 days later, another bomb, by the name of Fat Man, was dropped in Nagasaki, Japan, immediately killing 40,000 people. 3 days after that, Japan surrendered, thereby ending the 6-year World War II. 2 years later, the Cold War began in 1947. The Cold War didn't involve much military combat at all. The war was very tense in its entirety because of the threat of nuclear weapons and their devastation. Both sides of the war claimed to be in possession of nuclear weapons, and each was afraid to make a move on the other. The Cold War was cold because of the threat of nuclear energy, which was discovered how to be used properly in the Manhattan Project. The skills and knowledge possessed after the years spent on making the first atomic bomb weren't just used to end World War II, but the entire concept of nuclear energy was kindled until it was a fire that burned brightly. Today, there are about 17,300 known nuclear warheads total in the world. The United States is a known possession of 7,100 nuclear warheads, placing it second on the list of nuclear warheads from greatest to least, Russia being in possession of the most. In 1998, the spending on all U.S. nuclear weapon-related things was $35.1 billion. Some completely oppose nuclear weapons and their destructive power, while others encourage anything to help win wars. Even Albert Einstein himself said, writing that letter to Roosevelt was the biggest regret of his life. Today, Hiroshima and Nagasaki are thriving cities with about 1 million citizens in each city. Hiroshima has a large automobile industry, and almost no one suffers from radiation side effects from the bombings of 1945. The Manhattan Project was a majorly influential project of the 1930s and 40s. Science breakthroughs were made all throughout the project's entirety, and war tactics today have higher stakes and different dynamics because of the Manhattan Project. The project was a major responsibility of the United States because the U.S. was in a race against Axis countries in World War II to see who could build the atomic bomb first. The Manhattan Project also stirred major controversy about whether nuclear weapons are okay and whether bombing civilians is acceptable as well. Today, life is extremely different from the days before the Breakthrough Project that answers a few more mysteries of the universe. The Manhattan Project changed the lives of many Japanese and ended World War II. The debate of whether the Manhattan Project was right or wrong can go on. The project did exactly what it set out to do. It fulfilled the responsibility of the militants and scientists from around the world by ending World War II.